Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Frank, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Alrighty, so today we're going to start with a game. As usual, I personalize these games for each person, so I hope you enjoy it. But if you don't tell me. I would be really hurt. Just kidding. You can tell me. This game is called Signal or Noise. So I am going to read you a statement, a trend, or a belief, and you are going to tell me whether you think it's a signal, meaning it's meaningful or like worth paying attention to, or it's just noise, meaning it's overhyped or misunderstood or distracting in some way. You know what I'm saying? Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Alrighty. Okay. First one. And starting hard, AI can fix bad data.
That is true.
Explain to me why. I'd love to know.
Well, I'm actually taking a class about this, a class about business analytics and AI. And AI understands data very well, especially unstructured data and semi-structured data, and even structured one, right? So videos, right, they can do face recognition. Sound, it can recognize sound, voices. And text is very good with text. It can summarize data. So it is used, and it's going to be used more and more to clean data. It's actually a good point because this morning, actually, we were talking in the class about cleaning data, and data engineers spend close to 65 to 70% of their time cleaning data. And that's where AI can come in and help remove duplicates. And duplicates can be sometimes, like, for example, a client name. One client name has a lowercase, the other one has a uppercase, right? Little variation, and you think it's different, but AI can identify that. So when you have thousands and hundreds of thousands of records, you can automate this process, and you can actually use what's called ranking. So you need to use a little bit of code and rank to see how close it is to being a duplicate, for example, and fix the data. And there's other things, the other approach that can be used to do the data cleaning.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point because I think sometimes the gut reaction to that prompt would be that AI is altering the data in some way, which is not true. It is really just making it more fine-tuned and clear, and like taking out anything that's repetitive, which would, to your point, take an extremely long time or an extremely longer time for just a person to be able to clean. And sometimes they might miss things. So perfect. So thank you so much for providing an example for that. And then I'm going to go to a next one. So, okay. Data governance slows innovation.
That's a good question. Yes and no. And actually, it's a very good question. And so I took a class last year about data strategy.
You have a class for every prompt I have?
Almost, yeah. Well, the thing is, I come from a technical background. I've been a DBA a database administrator for a long time. And what I was missing, it was more the business side, right? Trying to understand how you can create value for a business using data. A lot of time, clients, they don't know where to start. They have a lot of data, and a lot of them are trying to jump on the AI bandwagon, thinking they're going to miss something. But the first thing is you have to make sure your data is clean, right? And you have to make sure you don't have data gaps. There's a lot of things that you exercise and steps you need to take before you can really use AI to bring more value to the company. Whether it's to automate processes, whether it's to alert you of certain trends, etc., you have to have clean data, and that's where data governance comes in, right? To really put some protection in place, right? So there's different layers. There's a security layer in data governance. There's the data quality layer in data governance. You want to make sure your data is always clean. And what does clean mean? So it is, I would say, an extra effort that the company has to take. And it's not necessarily needed at the beginning. It's maybe more needed when you're starting to have a solid foundation. You have good data in place. You have reports already in place. And now you need some data governance to just as a security layer, to have data quality layer, especially if you rely on compliance. Right? If you have to be compliant, healthcare, insurance, for example, that's what you need to do. You need to put that in place, otherwise you could get in trouble. So does it slow innovation? Yes, at the beginning, but if you look at long term, no, right? Because governance is going to force you to put in place some processes to manage the data better, which will benefit you down the road.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I understand that it can be a little annoying in the beginning, but it's also there for a reason. So it makes sense that it, like, overall, it's more helpful than hurtful. Okay, one last one because we're getting into great conversations. Okay. Which one should I give you? Okay. AI literacy should be taught outside of technical roles.
What do you mean by AI literacy?
I would say this in more of a general sense of, like, understanding the what's the word I'm looking for? Understanding the ability of AI.
Okay.
And like it's like stopping points, if that makes sense. Like its capabilities.
I agree. And it's interesting because I think there's that fear in companies that AI are going to replace job position. It is, understandable, but it's also going to create new ones. People need to think of AI as a teammate, that is going to be there to help you, to enhance your work, to allow you to work faster, to allow you to focus on decision, except of spending time doing repetitive process, which are boring. Where we are not really using our brain. This is stuff that AI can do, right? Because they're never tired, never complain. Give them the work and they'll do it. Then after that, you can use your brain to make decision. So yeah, I definitely think it should be taught outside also of the tech world. People should become knowledgeable about what AI can do, what's the goal of AI. So at the enterprise level, this is part, I would say, of the data strategy, where top executives are going to explain to people how they're going to use AI, what AI is going to do, what's the impact, what's the reason why we're using AI. In general, is to create values and increase revenue. But how does that translate? It's not always clear. Sometimes, yes, they have to get rid of some position because there were 10 people doing a task, and now AI can probably do half of it or maybe all of it.
Yeah.
But we're still going to need. One thing is clear, and I think it's probably. I guess I'm glad that humans have egos. We're not going to let AI make decisions. We want to be in control. So AI is going to be there just to enhance, provide better quality of what we do. And then, people are going to be here to make decisions. Does this make sense? Yes or no? Is AI going to sit as a board of directors and converse, right? Maybe in 10 years, but it's always, for me, it's more like having an open mind. If you look at artist, musician, right, movie directors, they're going to be AI to do things that they could not do before. And you have people also who have imagination, but they cannot draw, right? They cannot be creative because they don't have the manual skills. But their imagination is there. So AI gives that possibility, right, to do something that you could not do before. And maybe you have quite imagination and you can create a book or whatever. But it's meant to enhance us. How we use it, putting some measures to protect children and people, right? That's important. And right, some countries want to do that, some less. So that's also a challenge.
I definitely agree with that. There's limitations to it, and I think that sometimes I hope that they always exist. Yes, of a lot of the things that you said. I think it's interesting the perspective on people are worried about AI taking their jobs. I think to an extent that is somewhat of a reality in certain spaces, but at the same time, someone said to me the other day that really like kind of put this into perspective of that painting didn't stop being a discipline when photography came out. And
Exactly.
yeah, and like of course
Mhm.
there were painters that maybe did self-portraits and different things like or portraits of people that maybe they had less opportunities or something like that, but they just had to fine-tune their discipline. It also made that discipline more exploratory to do different types of painting that
Mhm.
made them inherently more human. And I think that's kind of what AI is doing. I think like people are pushing towards different skill sets that maybe have always been valuable but now are more valuable because
Mhm.
AI is in the space. And so I definitely agree with you that um it's something that is helpful in doing these intricate, maybe annoying tasks that we're not really using our brains much for anyway and just need to
Mhm.
be done. And I think that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I think that I would say some professions that are really at risk are teachers, um, right? Because AI is apolitical, irreligious, right? It doesn't take side, because teachers can be tempted to, they have their own belief and include that in their teaching. So it's really hard to be impartial and right listen to all the opinions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, we live in a world where YouTube channel now is it's becoming the go-to place for even kids to
Mhm.
learn. Right, they spend time on YouTube and they learn. AI plugs into YouTube to grab information and get it back to you. So if you want to learn about something, you ask ChatGPT, and it's going to tell you, okay, here you can learn about programming. I recommend this one, this channel, etc. Um, so I think it's what we have to do is make it available to everybody in the world, right? Especially in poor community, to allow people to grow their knowledge, right? Because who knows, maybe there's a great programmer somewhere in a country, but he cannot be a great programmer because he doesn't have access to the tool.
Hmm. Yeah, it needs to be. I think in where AI is concerned, and just I mean, I guess in general, you don't know what you don't know. So like, there's so many
Mhm.
things that you can be better at or more effective with. That there are tools out there to help you do that, but you have
Mhm.
no. I mean, if you have no idea or don't look for them, then you have no idea what can help.
Mhm.
And to your
Yep.
teaching point, I guess this is a slightly fun fact, I guess. I had spoken to someone the other day that had told me that they are looking into, and I wish I could remember the company, kind of using AI to reenact historical figures
Mhm.
as a teaching mechanism, which I think is really fascinating. I don't know I don't know where I stand on it yet, but I'm really curious because of your stance on teaching whether you think what you think about that, because even though I know this is slightly unrelated to your work. Um, but I think it's fascinating because I think there's different ways that kids learn that has not been often accounted for. And I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
something like that is more experiential. Um, however, problems with that I foresee. How to take out certain ways in which people used to be historically, like editing them to make them more um, politically correct. I don't. There's so many things that I see as problems
Mhm.
coming up with that. So I'm curious about your perspective on that since we're on the topic.
Well, I think in terms of teaching, some kids they're afraid to talk in class. They're afraid to ask questions.
Hmm.
With ChatGPT, you can ask anything. There's no judgment. People are not going to be laughing at you, etc. So, um, for people who are more reserved, it's a good way. It's comfortable, right? It brings comfort to the person. Reliable, right? That's where you have to have maybe a teacher to check the sources and make sure what the children are learning, that you know is true or not. But yeah, I mean, in terms of history, you can ask ChatGPT about anything. I asked ChatGPT about religion, what he thought, right? And that's kind of interesting, right? Did Jesus exist? Did he really resuscitate? So that's a very hot topic.
So
Um,
interesting. I've
and
never
and
building on this.
yeah, because right, he ChatGPT is not a human, right? He doesn't have emotions, so when it's going to be logical based on facts that he knows. So it's interesting to diving into those type of subject and asking an AI what it thinks, how it resonates. It reason about what it knows.
You've given me a fun new rabbit hole to dive down into later because I will definitely be exploring this. I'm so curious. But to get more onto the topic of what you do in relation to AI, since we're on the topic of AI, I'll just continue going with that.
Mhm.
How do you personally see AI reshaping the role of data architects, data engineers over like
Mhm.
the next several years?
It's a good question. I think it's going to accelerate. Like, for example, right? I use ChatGPT all the time, and I'm starting to use Claude AI more for a coding purpose for SEO, search engine optimization.
Mhm.
And I built agent that specialize in one specific specialty. One is knows about CTAs, one knows about backlinks, right? So I build those agents and I can ask questions and they can interact with one another. I think that's really the power. But for how it's going to transform, I think it's going to allow to produce better quality project in less time because you have enhancement. I see AI as enhancement. Um, can summarize, the way we work is we meet with clients, we have a Zoom meeting, it gets summarized already, right? So imagine instead of re-listening to a meeting, you have a summary at least of the Zoom meeting. That really helps understand the project. You can give it any document that the client share with you and give you a summary. So in terms of you get context about a business very quickly, and then you can also ask Chat to help you structure how to approach things. So it knows a lot. I mean, I was surprised. I've really challenged Chat with some really technical stuff, and a lot of time it gives good answers. I would say the danger is dependency, becoming 100% dependent on ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT all the questions
Yeah.
where you should start using your brain and start thinking. So I experienced that where I'm becoming now hesitant and I'm asking Chat more often, right? And a lot of time is to check my guts feeling, right? But I think it's going to transform a lot of things. Data architecture, yes, definitely. Data engineering, yes. Is it going to be able to automate everything, put it plus the pipeline? I think there's so much security that needs to be verified and tested. I mean, humans are still going to have to be involved in that process.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it is definitely something that is going it's changing a lot of industries
Yeah,
rapidly.
yeah,
And considering that long term um that I was that you're getting at with like this rapid innovation, which like we've seen before, I think
mhm,
in especially I constantly think about computers, like the way that in which that changed so much, and obviously in tech that is exactly what we're using. But how do you like balance long-term decisions in your field for like rapid innovations that are happening, especially with AI, but just in general? Because like I feel like we're in a place that you don't know sometimes what is going to be new in just
mhm,
a week's time.
mhm. Yeah. Um, well, I think there's also confusion about AI. Everybody's putting ChatGPT and in the same basket as you know uh, AI that existed 10 years ago to do predictive analytics. So it's important to really that the company understand exactly how they're going to be using AI. Timing is important. I think there's ChatGPT was basically caught humans by surprise. Right? It arrived on the market. We started using it. We were asking crazy questions, and the answer was like, "Wow, wow!" I mean, this thing can think, right? It can give, which for us, because there was nothing before that, right?
Yeah.
There was not really nothing, and this arrived on the market, and we were like, "Shit!" I mean, this thing can answer anything. I mean, the anything close that we could have before was kind of asking Siri some question, and it would give you an answer, but that was it, right? There was no reflection behind. And, and I think people saw that and was like, well, I'm going to put that in my company. But what is ChatGPT in your company going to bring you? What value is going to bring you, right? So again, it goes back to strategy. You know, how you need to look at your company and first identify um, what are your what is your business strategy? What are you trying to accomplish, right, with your business? How do you align that with your data strategy in order to meet your business strategy to create value? Maybe yes, you're ready to implement AI. Maybe you're not. Right? There's no rush. AI is not going to go away. Right? And that's what I see. There's this FOMO. Company, they want to rush and implement things, thinking, well, we have AI in our company, now we're going to do better. It's not true. If you don't use it properly, you're not going to get anything from it. And you're going to say, well, our AI sucks, and then you're never going to use it again. So you need to take your time and think. And there's a company I always admire is Apple, because they always look at what others are doing, right? They don't rush into things, and then when they see, okay, yeah, this makes sense, then they go for it. So it's they were never in the phone market before. They looked at BlackBerry. They said, okay, BlackBerry is nice. It's very popular. It has a keyboard, great, right? But they were not going to create another BlackBerry. They take it to the next level. So it's important to always take a step back, look at your company, look at the competitors, and how do you implement your AI strategy in your company.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, especially with something that I have seen a lot in the agency world in general, whether it be tech or marketing or design, even, is that there's a lot of people with this shiny object syndrome where like they're excited about new tools out there, which it's not bad to explore something new or like experiment with something new that you think might be helpful. You have to kind of discern beforehand if using this thing works towards a goal that you have in mind or fixes a problem that you have. And I think a lot of people, because they almost put too much faith in AI's capabilities, or maybe they don't put enough faith in their own capabilities, that they think it'll just make every process better. But there's some processes that are already optimized that don't necessarily need it, at least right now. And I think that's something that there's a lot of people that don't consider that and kind of just want to try every new thing because they just think it'll make their entire lives or company better. But I think that's 99% not true in like a full form.
Yeah. And like I was saying, AI has existed for a while now. If you look at Amazon, when they have product recommendation, that's AI. Credit card fraud, that's AI, right? And you can go on. There's a lot of in the industry. AI has been implemented in a lot of places. It's not ChatGPT AI, but it's a language model that can do prediction and recommendation for your business.
Yeah, it's something that is there's forms of it and maybe just I guess automation in general that have been around for very long. And I think that to your point about Apple, there are you can watch what is successful in your industry by just watching what other people are doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, it's to go on the Apple point. I mean, sometimes in the past they put out a phone that has a bunch of issues at first. And then you find out by people buying that phone and finding out all these issues. And that's a lot of people will wait the first several months when a new one comes out to make sure that their new phone isn't going to have any issues and they didn't pay upwards of $1,000 on something that might not work effectively. And I think that waiting is just like something that, like, being a little cautious is not bad. I think that people see that as like tackle I feel like caution is often seen as the opposite of innovation sometimes, but I think that there's a way of being cautious and not trying anything ever. So talking about, okay, you mentioned earlier about around things around data compliance. Do you feel that AI makes accomplishing or maintaining strict compliance easier in some ways or harder in some ways or both? I'm curious about how that works.
We haven't experimented with that yet, but my assumption would be that it's all about context. AI has to have context about your company, about what your policies are, about your data. So, and then when you do that, then yeah, AI can help monitor your data, the quality of your data, for sure. Right? You can rate the quality of your data, detect anomalies, etc. AI can be used to automate reporting, notify people. So a lot can be done there. But I think it's about context, right? How do you want, what data do you want AI to have access to? What do you want it to do with it? And you probably also need to put some guardrails in place to make sure it doesn't deviate about what you're trying to accomplish with it. And that goes back to, that's why I was experimenting with Cloud AI. And I like the approach of using agents because you can really define each of them to do a specific task. And you can either target that specific agent to do one task, or you can ask a big question and it will use multiple agents to give you an answer. So going back to what I was saying, I have an agent for CTAs, I have an agent for backlinks, I have an agent for internal linking, but I have context of all my website, right? So Claude knows about all my web pages, all my services, the case study I have, the blog. It knows about that. It knows about the content. So it can use that. And you can do the same thing with data governance. As long as you have all the data, the context, etc., and you put policy in place. You can also define a role for each of them, what their role is, and what they should do and not do. Then, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I like that point because it also kind of ties back into what we were kind of saying about how there's a human still necessary for most processes, even when involved in AI, because I can see in a world where something is not effective, or not compliant to strict guidelines based off of someone not feeding it the proper information or not feeding it as specific information, or their prompt is not as good as it should be. And I think that that's something that can really be detrimental. And if a trained person is not feeding the proper information, then obviously the information on the other end is not going to be perfect. And that's why it can't work wonders. It needs a little help. But I love to wrap our podcast up in like a reflective note. So I would love for you to provide a little advice for, what do you think if someone is trying to utilize AI more in a place, in an industry like yours? What do you think is like the first thing that they should consider when going about that?
But what do you mean in my industry, like data consulting? I think I go back to, for me, learning is key. I would take a class to make sure you understand really the business and the AI, how to, business analytics and AI, how to, because there's different AI, how to use them, and basically based on the need that the customer will have for their business, which one to use, right? Whether it's segmenting for marketing, do you want to improve customer satisfaction? So whatever the goal is, you're going to have to use different techniques, different AI to implement. So be sure to understand this, and basically practice. For me, the data strategy was really a game changer, because I was focusing when I was working with customers. I was focusing on the tech. I would try to say, oh yeah, you have to use Snowflake and dbt and Tableau, instead of more looking at, okay, what is the customer's pain point, what are their needs, how am I going to, which solution makes sense for them. So this really helps, and that's what we started doing. We started providing some data strategy consulting to basically pave the way for the business on how to implement, what to implement first, and when does AI comes next, and what needs to be done in order to leverage AI, etc. So these are very important. I know there's a lot of I follow a few Reddit subreddit channel, and there's a lot of data engineers who are worried about their job. They think AI is going to, get rid of that. A lot of people also have trouble finding jobs. I think right now is the best opportunity to learn, right? To get on top of AI, practice, do little case studies, do a little project, show what you can do, because that's what the company are going to be looking for. Like they always look for creativity, people motivated, people who are really passionate about their work. That will go a long way. But yeah, I think it takes time. It takes time, and I'm sure it's difficult to when you're young, and you're trying to find a job. It can be stressful, but keep learning. Keep learning.
I completely agree. I think that it is. I think that a lot of people are intimidated about what the world will be like soon and kind of how it is getting to now, specifically with AI and being incorporated in now, I would say all industries. But yeah, I think that there are still, I think the same things that were valuable before are still valuable now. It's just kind of shifted a little bit. And so I really appreciate your perspective on that, because it warms my heart to be helpful to people coming out of college. I mean, I'm close to having been brought up in this mess coming into the workforce. So I really feel for people that are entering different industries and really being afraid about like what's expected of them now. But I really think that not as much has changed as people think.
We agree.
Well, thank you, Frank, so much for joining me today. This was an absolute pleasure. It's really cool to be able to get, I have a lot of conversations about AI, but surrounding your industry, it's not something that I get to talk about as much. So this was really fascinating. I just love to get a glimpse into how everyone kind of uses it in a different way. So thank you so much for providing so much information.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. We'd be nothing without you. I hope you could check out Frank in the description, and I hope you guys have a lovely day.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.